Gray mold. What's the deal? We can begin by discussing what gray mold is and how we can identify it. Gray mold is a fungal disease caused by the genus Botrytis cinerea. This is a necrotrophic fungus, meaning it is parasitic to its host and feeds on its matter. Gray mold affects fruits, flowers, and many woody plants. It is characterized by tan-brown spots that develop into colonies that can be described as a fuzzy or dusty gray mold. Next, how does it spread and why is this an issue? Botrytis cinerea infects susceptible plants in cool, wet climates. The fungus infects wounded areas of the plant with fungal spores. These spores germinate upon entering the plant and disperse easily with wind or movement. As the fungus takes over, the plant develops withered leaves and rotted fruit. The fungus continues to spread between plants and is especially harmful in an agricultural context as large crops and food stores become inedible if the mold takes over.
Gray mold spreads very easily and quickly. It grows on more than 200 plant species. It is the most widespread and difficult pathogen to control. The disease can develop both in the field and during storage and transit, causing significant loss of pre- and post-harvest fruit. Gray mold has a broad host range that can develop fungicide resistance quickly. A majority of the time, pre- and post-harvest fungicides have proven to be ineffective and expensive. It is the most common reason for fruit rejection by growers, shippers, and consumers, resulting in significant economic losses. Gray mold causes crop losses of $10 billion to $100 billion worldwide each year. Because gray mold is an airborne pathogen, the spores of Botrytis cinerea can cause an allergic reaction, which has become known as wine grower's lungs, where a person has hypersensitivity, pneumonitis, and inflammation of the lungs.
So how do we get from this regular strawberry to a moldy strawberry? There is a bunch of research out there covering all the different types of processes in much greater detail. But if you wanted to read all of that, then you wouldn't be watching this video. So let's not overwhelm ourselves and start with the basics. Just like humans, plants age. As they grow, their defenses naturally become weaker. Plants in particular release a hormone called ethylene, which promotes senescence, or aging of the plant. This makes the plant more accessible to spores, since now they don't have to do too much work to infect the host. Humidity and nutrient availability play a big role on spore germination as well. B. cinerea can only sporulate if the host has an adequate amount of nutrients for them to feed on, and they are provided access to water through a moist environment or surface. The plant cell wall is made up of three main components that contribute to the stability and structure: pectin, cellulose microfibrils, and hemicellulose. These all act as nutrients for the pathogen, so B. cinerea secretes enzymes that work to degrade the cell wall to access these nutrients. As these spores accumulate on the plant surface and begin germination, they produce outgrowths called germ tubes, which later differentiate into aprosorium. These aprosorium have a penetration peg that punctures the protective cell wall layer. The combination of the enzyme secretion that helps to degrade the cell wall along with the germ tubes and aprosorium synthesis allow the pathogen to make its way inside of the host cell. Metabolites like botryodyl are released by B. cinerea throughout this whole process, which contributes to the rotten, fuzzy appearance that we first think of when someone says gray mold. B. cinerea also induces oxidative burst in the cell. This is a plant defense mechanism which promotes apoptosis or cell death to stop the spread of pathogen. In this case, however, B. cinerea also benefits since it feeds on dead cells and proliferates much faster than the host cell can kill itself. What else the pathogen does while inside of the host is another long-winded road of different regulators and complicated pathways, but we hope that you are starting to understand exactly what environmental triggers allow the pathogen to infect and reproduce within the cell, and how B. cinerea does so.
We can review by looking at what we have learned about gray mold. First, what is it? Gray mold is a fungus, Botrytis cinerea, that typically appears as a dusty mold on fruits and leaves of plants. Second, why do we care about gray mold? Since the fungus spreads quickly, it can infect entire crop populations, resulting in agricultural implications. And third, what is the biological process on how gray mold works? The release of ethylene from the fruits relates to higher spore distribution of the fungus. As the spores germinate on the plant surface, germ tubes develop, and the pathogen enters the plant cells. The metabolites are responsible for the fuzzy appearance we attribute to gray mold. Finally, we can wrap up by asking, how can we prevent gray mold?
Ways to prevent gray mold include removing senescent plant material to avoid inoculum buildup, increasing plant spacing and ventilation between plants to allow more airflow and enhance drying of plants, using polyethylene foils to prevent contact between soil and fruit so there's no moisture buildup. Plastic tunnels also aid in airborne inoculation incidence avoidance. And using drip irrigation and micro sprinklers act as another method to reduce the spread of spores and water film on fruit.
And now your checklist for understanding gray mold is completed. If you have any questions, please direct them to us and we'll do our best to respond. Thank you.